Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. I'm Jane Freudenberger. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Bellingham-Whatcom County. Before we begin, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And that reminds me, please turn off your cell phones. The League of Women Voters of Bellingham-Whatcom County is part of a national organization promoting civic education and voting rights. Our mission in election season is to provide clear, nonpartisan information to help voters make informed choices for the election. All of our forums are free and open to the public. Many of our local league volunteers have worked very hard to bring you 3 forums this election season, and we want to thank them. Tonight's forum presents candidates for various county offices, including treasurer, auditor, sheriff, county executive, and 3 county council races. Like the others, this forum is a live broadcast and is also being streamed on the internet. Rebroadcasts will be shown on BTV Channel 10. Our previous forums, one on the City of Bellingham races, the other on the ballot initiatives, can also be found on the same channel, and you can check the schedule at the City or the League's website. Content is solely owned by the League and cannot be used without our permission. Unauthorized taping by any device is prohibited. You are a big part of our forum. You were given index cards as you came in. These are for your questions. Please write the candidate position, in other words, sheriff or councilperson, on the top of your question card to make sure that it gets directed properly. The ushers will deliver your written questions to the front of the room. If you didn't receive any, or you need another one, please raise your hand and an usher will deliver some to you. Questions will be screened for duplication. Please write legibly. Make sure you write only 1 question per card, and we will choose as many as time allows. The League wishes to thank all the candidates for running for office and for participating in public forums. We're going to start tonight with the position of treasurer, and I will now read the job description. The treasurer collects, invests, and manages all monies and debts for Whatcom County and other junior and special service districts. The treasurer bills and collects property taxes, special assessment fees, and excise taxes. The job is a nonpartisan elected position serving a 4-year term, and the yearly salary is $96,650. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator for the first part of the evening, League Board Member Annette Holcomb. Annette.
Thank you, Jane. So I'd like to invite Mr. Oliver and Mr. Cisco to come on up to the podium now. But before we get started, it's important that we all understand the ground rules for our forum. All of the candidates were contacted and given the opportunity to participate. If they were unable to participate, candidates were asked to provide a statement to be read on their behalf. We look forward to having your questions, as Jane mentioned. We have 3 volunteers here in the front who will be screening the questions for appropriateness, clarity, and to avoid duplication. They are Jane Freudenberger, Kay Ingram, and Joe Collins. To determine which candidate goes first, we had each person roll the dice. Each session will start with 1.5-minute opening statement, and the high-rolling candidate will speak first. Then the candidates will be asked to respond to questions from the League and the audience, limiting their response to 1-minute time each. We'll alternate which candidate goes first with the questions. Candidates will finish with a 1-minute closing statement. And we've allotted 15 minutes each for the offices of treasurer, auditor, and sheriff, approximately 45 minutes for the county executive, and 20 minutes each for the county council races. Olivia Konachek and Elsie Heinrich will be tracking the time. They will flash a yellow sign when there are 15 seconds left. A red sign is the signal to stop talking, and if the candidate continues, a bell will be rung. Do you have your bell tonight? Uh-oh. Well, you're going to have to stand up and shout, Elsie. If you had continued to talk, we will cut you off right after that red sign, after you finish your sentence. We ask that the candidates be respectful of the time limit so that we can air as many questions as possible. So with the rules covered, let's get started. Now, with our first race, unfortunately, Brian Smith was not able to be with us tonight, and he has sent somebody to speak on his behalf. I'd like to introduce Stephen Oliver, the treasurer, who is on your right, and beside him is Ron Cisco, who will be giving the statement from Mr. Smith. Mr. Cisco, you may now read the 1.5-minute statement.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ron Cisco, and in his absence, I have been asked to read a statement from Brian Smith, candidate for Whatcom County Treasurer. I have known Brian and his family for over a decade and can vouch for his commitment to doing things he says he will do. Every year, he and his wife Molly and their 2 children harvest cranberries on his parents' farm in Oregon. He did want you to know that he wishes he could have been here, but he has a long-standing commitment to his family. Brian has worked in the banking, finance, and investment business for over 20 years. He has managed investments for over 900 Whatcom County families, managing over $1 million in client investments. He currently owns Bellingham Capital Management, an investment advisory firm. As a banker, he has worked in retail banking, retail and commercial lending and loan processing, originating, and underwriting. He has also been the lead on many loan workouts for distressed properties and borrowers, and has experience in complex financial engineering. He has a breadth of experience that his opponent does not have when it comes to managing money and structuring financing. He has purchased, sold, analyzed, and even underwritten bonds. My time.
That's your time. That's your signal for time. Thank you. Mr. Oliver, you have 1.5 minutes to give your opening statement now.
My name is Steve Oliver, and I am your Whatcom County Treasurer. The office of the County Treasurer isn't necessarily about 1.5-minute stump speeches. It's more about getting the job done. So with that in mind, I'm going to kind of talk quickly about some things that I've already done for you and I will continue to do in the future. Proven experience. I bring over 12 years of hands-on treasury management experience in the Treasurer's office. I manage over $1 billion worth of financial transactions annually, a $250 million investment pool, and we balance all of that to the penny every day. The economy. During some of the most turbulent times that any of us have seen in our lifetimes, I kept your money safe. I didn't buy the toxic investments that the stockbrokers and investment bankers assured us were a sure thing. When interest rates fell, I was able to finance over $70 million in public debt to save you real money. We also were able to maintain the county's excellent AA credit rating, which will save us millions of dollars when we need to borrow money to build that jail in the future. Efficiencies. Oh boy. When I started in the office 13 years ago, every desk in that office was full. And now there's 5 empty desks. We've done that through applying good business practices and leveraging good technology.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Cisco, thank you for coming tonight. it is not fair to have a spokesperson answer for the candidate, and so we are now going to proceed with the questions that we have for you, Mr. Oliver. My first question is that we understand you've been working on a plan to offer monthly or quarterly tax collections. When might this service be available, and how would we pay for the additional cost of doing that?
That's a great question. You know, the state legislature has been trying to force the counties to provide this service at the cost of the taxpayers over several sessions of the legislature. 2 sessions ago, the county treasurers went back to the legislature and said, you know what, we can accept these kinds of payments, but we want to be able to charge the users to do that. So the cost of this program and processing these payments will be fully borne by the people that use the program. We're exploring this. It's a little more difficult than taking the payment and breaking it up into 12 pieces. There are some technicalities to it. We're reviewing those options. We're talking to some other counties that have already implemented similar plans, and we hope to have something in place by the end of this year.
As a follow-up, who do you think would benefit from this change?
You know, I think the people that would benefit the most from this are probably folks that are on fixed incomes.
Thank you. What further operational changes would you like to do in the Office of Treasurer? And might private sector contracting be considered in the future?
You know, we're also working on a project right now which will allow our local title companies and real estate professionals to submit real estate transactions electronically to our office. And we're coordinating that effort with the county assessor and the county auditor's office. They're both involved in that process as well. My office utilizes a lot of external private business partners now. We outsource payment processing with a professional payment processing company. We outsource our statement printing and billing. So you know, we do utilize and leverage a lot of private business partnerships.
Thank you. How are the decisions for investing the county's money made? Who makes them, and what is your plan to keep our AA rating?
The county has an investment policy, and you know, the policy is quite clear that my priorities when I invest the public's money is safety, liquidity, and yield is the third factor. And you know, we develop strategies and plans around that policy. We meet quarterly with the Administrative Finance Committee, which consists of myself, the chair of the county council, and the county auditor. So we review these plans throughout the year, and we make those adjustments as necessary.
Okay. Someone in the audience has asked, what is your stance, the stance of your office regarding the coal train and the Cherry Point terminal?
Well, I don't have a strong position. What I can tell you though is that I did contact the proponents of the of the project that's being proposed at Cherry Point, and I asked them to substantiate their claims that this project would return millions of dollars in new tax revenue to local government. I asked them that question much earlier in the year, and I am anxiously awaiting a response.
Okay, thank you. I would like to go back to your explanation about the policy that guides your investment, which I appreciate that explanation. Are there any ways that are those meetings open to the public, the meetings that you have between your investment advisors and the council?
Yes, and we do publish notices in the Bellingham Herald when those meetings are going to occur, or otherwise, if somebody has an interest in attending one of those meetings, they can certainly contact my office and find out when the next meeting is scheduled.
Thank you. No more questions from the audience? Okay. Then we'd like to move ahead, and you may give your closing statement, Mr. Oliver.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out this evening, and I just want to let you know that I do work hard for you. Our audits are clean, your money's been protected and safe, and I've produced real savings of your tax dollars. Proven experience counts, and especially in the challenging economic times that we're facing today, I think it counts even more than ever. And I would be honored to continue to serve as your county treasurer. And I guess I would just add, just as a little announcement here at the end, it's, fall is in the air and Halloween is approaching. And if you come into my office and pay your property taxes, you can get a treat.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No tricks. Join me in thanking Mr. Oliver. Thank you for being here tonight and for running for public office. Our next segment of the program is for the Whatcom County Auditor race. League of Women Voters co-president Jane Freudenberger will give us some information regarding the Office of Auditor.
The county auditor supervises the election process, including mailing the ballots and counting the vote. The office also handles recording and collecting of licensing and public records. This includes auto tabs, drivers, and marriage licenses. It is also tasked with internal audits. It is a nonpartisan position, elected for a 4-year term, and the yearly salary is $96,650.
Thank you, Jane. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the candidates. Debbie Adelstein is on your left. Jalen Walker is on your right. And we will start with the high roller of the dice, who is Debbie Adelstein. Debbie, you have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement, starting now.
Thank you. Well, since he gave the description of what our job is, that took care of probably a first paragraph of what we usually say, so cross that one off. I am your current Chief Deputy Auditor. I've been serving in this position for the last 6 years, working with Shirley Forslove, our current auditor. In the auditor's office, I manage 16 employees. We have a $2.7 million annual budget, and we make every effort at being as fiscally responsible as we can. We have returned each year our budget savings of an average of 4.5% of our budget. And each time when we've prepared a budget and been asked to make cuts, we've met the threshold that was set for us and exceeded that. I took a look in 2006 at what our overtime was, and at that time, overtime for our department was $25,000. Last year, it was $6,000. I've administered 23 elections, and I'm a state-certified election administrator. I'm dedicated to impartial, transparent, and responsive operations. I'm endorsed by Shirley Forslove, and I hope to be able to continue the work that she and I have started.
Jaylene, you have 1.5 minutes to give your opening statement.
Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and for the invitation to be part of this time-honored tradition. I'm Jalen Walker. I'm 51. I've lived in Whatcom County since 1973. I've owned and operated 2 small businesses, worked as a legal secretary at a law firm. I've managed 3 different public offices and earned a degree in business and public administration. In more than a decade of public service, I've focused on efficiency, excellent customer service, and robust, transparent public process. I've managed the Bellingham City Council office since 2004 as the sole administrator and the legislative coordinator. I've submitted 8 office budgets. I've implemented painful cuts, and I've made big improvements in each and every office that I've managed. I've already proven that I can learn and uphold complex laws of Washington State. I'm running to bring more of the citizens' voice into the management decisions of the auditor's office. In my view, public process has been missing from the auditor's office. It's past time to use public hearings, social media, electronic surveys in order to the communication protocols of the office in order to get input from the greatest number of citizens possible. As your auditor, I will never forget, I work for you.
Thank you very much. Debbie, you will be the first to answer the first question as well. Across the country, a number of states have passed legislation to restrict voter registration drives and tighten rules for voting. What safeguards do we have to ensure the accuracy of our elections? Is voter fraud a significant problem in our county?
Voter fraud is not a problem in Whatcom County. Whatcom County has a very clean record, and actually the entire state does. Many of the stories that we hear of what's going on in other places does not occur in Washington. We have the ability under the new statewide voter database that we can now, whenever someone comes in to register, be able to search that database and be able to tell if they're registered in another county, so that we don't have situations of people being able to vote in more than one place. And that's often what is some of the cutbacks that you're hearing that the other states are involved with. We just don't have that problem, and I think in other states, they also take an outlook of much more of you have to prove yourself in order to be able to vote, where Washington has always accepted the idea that this is what the requirements are and you make a sworn statement to that effect.
Thank you. Jalen, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Across the country, a number of states have passed legislation to restrict voter registration drives and tighten the rules for voting. What safeguards do we have to ensure the accuracy of our election, and is voter fraud a significant problem in our county?
I agree with Debbie that it's not a significant problem in Whatcom County. I believe that the system that we have of voting right now is very well organized, that there are lots of securities in place watching over the ballots, making the proper checks, making sure to protect voter anonymity. The system in place has already a lot of safeguards. We support and promote voting here. In this county, the idea is that it should be easy to vote and not hard. And we do a lot of work in order to encourage people to vote.
Thank you. Jalen, the next question I'd like you to respond to first. Are there office improvements that you could make to protect citizens' right to vote and encourage them to do so?
Are there office improvements?
Yes.
Yes.
As auditor, are there improvements that you would like to make?
Yes, there's a number of things. We have about 118,000 registered voters, and there are a lot of people who are not voting. I'm going to be very interested in being out in the public and learning from the public what it is that is preventing people from voting, and then to see if we can address that. There's a couple of ways that I'd like to encourage people to vote, and that is, one thing is I'd like to give people tours of the election center, so that people can see what happens with their ballot once it arrives and understand how secure it is in relation to the first question. I would also like to conduct an annual workshop for people who have ever thought about running for public office, so that they have a neutral place to go to find out about how they can get involved and get their questions answered. Because I think there's a lot of knowledgeable people who would participate in this process and make it better if they just knew how to start. I also intend, sorry.
Thank you. Debbie, would you respond to that question?
Sure. There are a number of things that we've talked about within the office, and some things that we may not have reached a conclusion yet. But those might include, I'd like to see the publication of a quarterly e-newsletter that would be sent to citizens to inform them about key operations. And while Jaylyn has mentioned the idea of giving tours at the courthouse, when we give our observer training, we go over all of the processes with observers, and we realized that we could we would like to tape and video, have that on our website so anyone can watch it at any time from the convenience of their home. We'd also like to, I'd certainly like to see an expanded use of the Citizens Election Advisory Committee that we currently have to expand the representation of who's at the committee and use it much more as a voter outreach tool and encourage participation in that way.
Okay, thank you. The next question, how do you believe experience will help or hinder your ability to do your job? And Debbie, it is your turn to respond first to that.
Well, we have some very important things that are going to be coming up in this next year. As many of you know, we're in the process, as soon as this election is over, to begin redistricting. Every 10 years when the census comes through, the state gets started on the process first by realigning legislative districts, if that's needed, and congressional districts. And then that applies down to the local level as well. So that's a very important job that we have to do this next year. And it's also a presidential election year. So I personally believe that the citizens would be looking at wanting to have stability in the office and continue the work that I have started working these 6 years that I've been there, and I can make a seamless transition to making those things happen. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
I think experience is very important. I think there are some good systems in the office right now, but I think that there's a lot of room for improvement in different ways that I've already improved many of the public offices that I've already worked for. One of the things that happens is that when there is the same leadership in place for a very long time, and the workforce has been there for a very long time, it's sometimes really difficult to see the way that the rest of us experience the services of that office. When you've been inside for a long time, it's hard to imagine how it is that the customers of the services are experiencing that. One of the things I love most doing is examining the systems and finding efficiencies and figuring out how to do it more efficiently, cheaper, and faster. And I've done that with several systems within the city council office, which meant that once I was eliminating staff, I didn't have to replace them because I figured out how to do it without staff.
Thank you. The next question is for you to respond to first, Jalen. You mentioned a need for greater public communications. Are there specific issues that you think should be addressed?
Yes. As I've been out doorbelling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses this year, one of the things that I asked people was that when Whatcom County was the first county to move to all mail-in balloting. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that. But in asking people, did you know that this decision was up for consideration? And were you given an opportunity to give your input? One single person at one door said yes, they knew this was going to happen. And that's because his wife had worked in the elections office. I think that was a significant decision. I think that the role and the responsibility of the elected official is to be the voice of the citizens and to represent the values and priorities of the citizens. And to do that, you really need to reach out and find out from a wide variety of citizens all across the county what they want in their services.
Thank you. Debbie, would you like the question repeated?
No, that's fine. That's fine. We actually did have a public process that was involved before we went to vote by mail. It wasn't just a declaration made by the auditor. It had to be adopted by the the county council for its approval. And while we may have been the first to actually enact it, there were 5 or 6 counties right behind us that were doing the same thing. It was just something that we saw being there. We went out, I know, and made several public presentations. We met with a number of the active voter groups that were around. So whether or not individual citizens then chose to come to either those or the public hearings that were held at the county council meeting, that's always hard to know how many people will come for that. I think it's a situation that it's, now every county in the state is that, and it's required to be there, so I'm not sure if that's a little bit of water under the bridge.
Okay, thank you. The next question is for you to answer first, Debbie. We clicked on the Internal Audit Division button on your website and learned that that position has been eliminated due to budget cuts. Do you think this should be reinstated? And how might you find the funds to do so, give us that service?
Well, I think what we found over the years when the auditor's office was first set up the way it currently is in the charter, at that time we were doing a lot more audits than we currently have been doing over the last 5 or 6 years, because more and more the role has been taken on by the state auditor's office, who comes in and performs those audits of every operation that we have. So we were finding a lot of redundancy with that position. We had made some attempts to change what its focus was and to look more on the basis of risk management, which was, I think, a good concept. It was having a slow start, and we weren't getting much progress made on it. And then when the budget cuts were coming around, we looked at what were the mandated services that were required to perform, and the elections recording and licensing were all clearly mandated services that we had to have available. I think it might be a position that when funding returns to a higher level, we could perhaps reinstate it, but again, we'd have to redefine what its purpose is, because it wasn't meeting its need, and the state auditor does so much more of that and does it well.
Thank you. Jaylyn, do you think that service should be reinstated?
I am interested in understanding what was the impetus for its implementation in the first place, and is that situation still a problem, or is there the purpose that it could still serve? I'm very familiar with the state audit process as well. They come in for about 12 weeks and take over a large portion of our building, and we all answer questions to them. I believe, though, that the internal auditor position may very well have been in place to make sure that when the state audit came around, that there were less possibility and less risk for finding things. When the state finds problems, the organization can end up with a fine. It could affect their bond rating. There are some consequences to not being prepared for that audit, the state auditors to come in the first place. So it would require some examination.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the audience for the auditor? Yes, not. So, you would like to go ahead and have your 1-minute closing statement. Jaylyn, you will be the first one to give that.
Thank you. I've been preparing for this for a long time. I will be vigilant in preventing voter fraud of all types. I will only support the use of voter-verified paper ballot process systems for our local elections, and will fight against any move toward internet, touchscreen voting, or all electronic voting of any kind. I will never endorse any issue or candidate on the ballot of an election I am responsible for. I am committed to upholding the highest degree of impartiality without compromise. I have a broad public service history. I have diverse management experience to add value to what's already there in the auditor's office. And I want to make it work better for you and for all the citizens of Whatcom County. I'm Jaylyn Walker, and I ask for your vote for Whatcom County Auditor.
Thank you. Debbie, please give your closing statement.
Okay. I'm committed to the nonpartisan nature of the office. Therefore, I have not sought endorsements of any parties, political parties, or candidates, and I value the role that the parties and the candidates serve, but as a matter of principle, I felt that it was important for me to be free of any appearance of influence from any political party or individual when counting the ballots. Elections must be impartial, fair, and open. And I'd like to state as well that being a candidate on the ballot for this election, I have recused myself from involvement in the conducting of this election. So if there's anybody who has that lingering question of, what's she doing in the office if she's on the ballot? There's still other tasks, many tasks for me to work on, so it isn't on this particular election. I guess I would like to confirm that my experience gained and the relationships I've made will be an asset. I have run on this several months now on the idea that experience matters, and I hope that everyone will agree with me. I'd like your vote.
Thank you very much. And please join me in thanking Debbie Adelstein and Jaylyn Walker for being here tonight and for running for public office. the next segment of our program is the Office of Sheriff, and Jane Freudenberger will give us a few words about that office.
The sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. The sheriff is responsible for emergency management services and coordination of law enforcement with local, tribal, state, and federal officials. The sheriff's office enforces court orders, coordinates search and rescue operation, and operates the jail system. The Whatcom County Sheriff position is one of only 3 nonpartisan sheriff positions in the state. The term of office is 4 years with a yearly salary of $119,350.
Thank you, Jane. I remind the audience to submit your questions for the candidates. Please write the name of the office on the card and then one question. Ushers will pick up your cards and bring them up to us. The rules and the format will be just the same as we had before. It's my pleasure to introduce the candidates to you. Sheriff Bill Elfo is on your left, and Deputy Steve Harris is on your right. Thank you for being here. We're going to start with the high roller of the dice, which is Bill Elfo. You have 1.5 minutes to give your opening statement now.
Thank you, and thank the League for sponsoring this forum. I'm Bill Elfo. I've been your sheriff for the past 8 years. When I came into office, our county was facing some pretty tremendous public safety issues. Since that time, I've been focused on preventing crime and developing the relationships necessary to achieve results, and we did achieve results. Over my tenure, since I've taken office, crime has dropped over 40% in Whatcom County, and that's a higher rate than similar counties and 56% below the state average. I've worked with domestic violence and sexual assault services to keep domestic violence victims safe, and we've achieved a 47% drop in domestic violence assaults. I focused on eradicating meth labs that were plaguing our community in 2003, and we went to 43 to 0. When I took office, law enforcement could not book dangerous and repeat drivers or criminals into jail, including drunk drivers. I focused on ending booking restrictions at the jail, and we opened a jail alternative work center. We've gone off booking restrictions, and those type of offenders can now be booked again. We operate the most robust jail alternative programs in the state of Washington. We have inmates going out to work on work crews every day, doing salmon habitat restoration. We work in the national and state forests, and we have work release programs where offenders go to school and support their families. I've worked to improve mental health. That's a big correlation between that and crime. I've improved mental health services in the jail and made sure there was a connection for people getting out of jail to continue receiving services.
Thank you. Steve Harris, please give your opening statement, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, and thanks for the League for having this forum. It is a pleasure to be here, and I enjoy watching it every year. My name is Steve Harris, and I've been a deputy for 16 years, the last 8 of which I've served as a detective. I've never been a police chief, and I don't have a law degree, so my opponent has some experience that I'll probably never attain. But what I do have is 16 years in the field of doing this job here in Whatcom County. I do have leadership experience. I've been elected to lead private corporations. I currently sit on the board of a for-profit corporation, and I currently sit on a board of a private scholarship foundation. So I believe that I do have the leadership experience to run the sheriff's office. What I offer you is a philosophical change in the way that we do law enforcement. What I believe is we can make the community safer by involving the community in our local law enforcement. While we've seen our military used abroad as law enforcement, we've seen our law enforcement being used more and more as a military locally against the people. I'm strongly opposed to that, and I believe that we need to use the people as a resource to help us solve crimes. I don't believe that building bigger jails is a solution. I'm the only advocate on this campaign, or the only candidate on this campaign who's advocated for a local downtown location for a jail, because it makes sense fiscally, socially, and environmentally. We'll save tens of millions of dollars by doing so, and frankly, we need to do it, and we can do it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with a question and answer section, and your answers are 1 minute in time. I have two questions from the League of Women Voters to start out. Bill Elfo, you'll be the first to respond. How do you determine if we have an optimal amount of deputies on patrol? And if we need more, how do we plan to pay for them? Second part of the question. What is the current solve rate in Whatcom County, and does it need improving?
I'll answer both of those questions. We do not have enough deputies in Whatcom County. We're facing budget shortages like every other community. There's national and state averages, 1.2 deputies per 1,000 population, but we're unique here. We have to cover areas like New Halem and Point Roberts and provide resident deputies. We look at crime rates, we look at meth labs, and we look at emerging gang problems to decide how we allocate resources. We focused on crime prevention. You know, I could look at statistics by focusing on shoplifters. We could build up our clearance rate. It's around 14%, but I focus on major crime. I focus on victims of domestic violence. I focus on people being assaulted by gang members. I'm not just a numbers guy. I look at the type of crime that's being committed, and we assign priorities as they're needed.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat that
No, it's
question,
okay.
Steve? Okay.
It's interesting that you say you're not a numbers guy, but that's all we hear is statistics. 40% reduction in crime. I tell you the solve rate is 13.5%. I can also tell you that the number of deputies, for the number of deputies we have assigned to our 24/7 patrol operation, is less now than it was when my opponent took office in 2003. We have more administrators. We have a $100,000 a year chief who writes policy that we've never had before in the history of the sheriff's office. So before we start asking for more deputies on the road, I think we need to make better use of the deputies that we have. I think we need to get back to the focus and emphasis of investigating and solving crime. How do we do that? We spend $10,000 a month on a SWAT team, but we don't have a single person capable of entering a fingerprint into the national database system. To me, that's ridiculous. We have the lowest solve rate of any other law enforcement agency in Whatcom County. It's gone down 3 years in a row. We also have the lowest solve rate of any of our comparable sheriff's office is in the state compared to size. So these are the things I would work on. These are the priorities that I would make.
Thank you. The next question, I'd like you to respond first, Steve. What is the role of the sheriff's office in determining the location of the new jail site?
The sheriff, as you mentioned at the very beginning here, is the chief law enforcement officer of Whatcom County, and as such really needs to take a lead role in determining where we're going to locate our jail, what type of jail it needs to be. We've been trying to do this for the entire time the sheriff has been in office, and we're no further ahead. We spent years planning for a process that ended up in an environmental impact statement. It cost $1 million. All the elected officials were involved, or most of them, in putting this out. Nobody said a word about it. They all participated until it was released to the public. Once it was released to the public, every single one of them involved backed away from it. A hands-off approach. The sheriff needs to be a strong advocate where it needs to be, how big it needs to be. Again, it needs to be about 500 beds, located downtown, and to take into efficiencies that we can use in a horizontal structure. Our experts just said just recently, it doesn't have to be horizontal to incorporate the features and efficiencies that can be built horizontally. We can build it single level or just a couple levels downtown. There's plenty of space. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Alfo, what is the role of the sheriff's office?
The sheriff operates the jail. It's up to the county council to make decisions as to the size and the location of the jail. But certainly it's the sheriff's responsibility to provide good and wise advice on that. In the history of Whatcom County, the jail's been at 7 different locations, so it's every 25 or 30 years to restart the process. I am advocating and recommending a jail of about 600 beds with room for programs for mental health, for substance abuse, for education, so we can continue our work crews that go out and with the agricultural programs that we're doing with the jail alternative site. We need room for increased work release programs, and that's where we need to proceed. There's an argument that the jail could be put downtown, but every consultant except the last one said very clearly that would be more costly to build and more costly to operate, and that includes the National Institute of Corrections.
Okay. As a follow-up on that, we understand that last council's jail task force, that consultant has determined that the vertical jail could run just as safely and as efficiently as a horizontal one. It's my understanding that the latest consultant made that statement, and we wondered if that influenced your perspective at all.
Well, certainly it's an issue that needs to be looked at, but what he said is it's not a foregone conclusion that it cannot be operated as efficiently and safely. He said he was only here for a day and a half. He would have to review the data more. The National Institute of Corrections, which is an arm of the Justice Department, sent 2 seasoned jail designers and people that operate jails that recommended a horizontally designed jail. But there's a task force in place. They're reviewing these issues, and I'll support any logical conclusion that comes up, but I believe we need room to expand the jail. And the consultant also said when we build a vertical jail, we're going to add expenses putting in footings, reinforcing walls, building elevator shafts, and it's going to be more costly.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, actually, the consultant didn't say that that was a foregone conclusion either, that it isn't going to be any more expensive. So again, I've been advocating for this for months during this campaign, that it doesn't have to be horizontal to have these efficiencies. And I'm so happy and glad that we finally had an expert in here who actually agrees with what I'm saying. This isn't a run-of-the-mill. This guy's been doing this since the 70s. And he was very clear in what he was saying about our jails. So yeah, I don't believe it needs to be built vertically. In fact, he said if you build it vertically, it's safer because it's more compact and you're not having to go 100 yards away to get cover. So yeah, that's my view. It's been my view all along, and I support this. The one thing I also wanted to mention about that, you mentioned the National Institute of Corrections. The consultant did bring that up, and he mentioned the National Institute, and that they're saying that it was less efficient vertically, but that's just for jails under 200 in capacity. So he clarified that. We're talking about building something bigger than that.
Okay. We're going to go on to another topic.
Okay.
I think in your final remarks, you could
Sure.
come back to that if you wish. As Sheriff, Steve, as Sheriff, what is your plan to increase response time for domestic violence cases in remote areas?
No, it's a great question. And although we've seen a decrease in domestic violence, what we have seen is an increase in the severity of the violence that's happening. We've had 8 domestic violence murders over the last couple of years in Whatcom County, including the murders of young children, a 10-week-old baby, a 1-year-old baby. How can we get to these calls faster? I think that we need to take a logical approach to the way that we deploy our resources. We can take the sergeant that we have in the office, updating the sheriff's office Facebook page and doing schedules, and put him on the road to help respond to these calls. Our sergeants in the field now, they don't have a caseload. They're not taking calls for service generally. They're driving around their patrol cars and monitoring. If you look at our United States military, for example, the sergeants there have the rifles, they're doing the calls, and they're leading. I think our sergeants need to do the same thing. That's another thing that we can do. We can also get away from the geographic approach to the way that we do our resources, where they're northeast, northwest, north-south, and use a logical approach based on where our calls for service are, and dividing those areas among our resources.
Chief Alfo?
Well, we need to have the ability to respond to all emergencies in the county in an area that's larger than the state of Delaware. And to do that, in our more densely populated communities, we've put in neighborhood deputies who know the folks that live there. They're available for 24/7 patrol and respond elsewhere, but they focus on the problems. We work with the Domestic Violence Commission and Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Services. We recently received an award. We were selected as the Agency of the Year for our approach to domestic violence assaults and how we train our deputies and how we protect victims and ensure that they're provided with the services that they need to break the cycle of violence. And we will continue to do that.
Okay. Question from the audience for you. Bill Elfo, your campaign is about honesty. And what would you do if you found out a sheriff deputy filed a false police report?
If a sheriff's deputy filed a false police report,
Correct. A
then
sheriff's deputy.
then our deputies have to have a high level of integrity and honesty. And if they knowingly made a false statement under oath, which it is when they sign the report, our only option would be to terminate them if there was evidence to prove that that happened.
Thank you. Steve, what would you do if a sheriff's deputy filed a false police report?
Well, assuming that we did a complete investigation that involved an outside agency conducting the investigation and found out that that's actually what indeed happened, yeah, I agree with my opponent. You fire them. We cannot have law enforcement officers filing false police reports. It's You know, they could never withstand, the biggest reason for that is they can never testify in court. It's like them every time, really. You telling the truth today, officer? You weren't telling the truth when you wrote that report. So no, there's no possible way that you could retain that person unless he was in a, well, there's no way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Steve, I'd like you to respond to this one first. ICE, the Immigration Enforcement, is raiding businesses and deporting immigrants. What are you doing, what could you do to protect these folks and help keep families together?
That's a great question. It's a really complicated answer, to be honest with you. We need to be aware that, you know, the sheriff's core function is really to protect the citizens of the county against everybody, whether that's the federal government, whether that's the local offenders. So we really need to be careful and watchful and mindful of what's happening to our citizens. There's not a lot we can do directly as a sheriff. We're certainly not going to go up in an armed confrontation against the federal authorities when they're conducting these things. They have the authority to do so. It's within their federal purview to conduct these types of raids. But what we can do is, you know, request that we're involved in the process, we're aware of what's going on, and be involved from the beginning rather than learning about it later. And we can certainly advocate to the federal officials our involvement and our views in the matter.
Thank you. Sheriff Alpo?
Well, I find ICE is a highly bureaucratic agency, and everything, their policy and their enforcement strategies are dictated from D.C. So if the public wants to change that, they need to talk to their other elected representatives. But I could tell you what we're doing here locally with immigration enforcement. We've made it clear that we need victims of crime to be able to come forward and report crime and seek services without the fear of immigration consequences. So if we're called to a scene of domestic violence and the victim is here illegally, we certainly do not, we do not engage in any immigration enforcement. And we also have an agreement with the Border Patrol. They're out here in the field all the time in the similar Homeland Security agencies. If they come to assist us or they show up at one of our scenes, they do not also take immigration enforcement action against victims or witnesses of crime. If we have somebody that's a criminal, that's committed a crime, a serious crime, we do notify them and they come in and look at our jail every day.
Thank you very much. Sheriff Alpha, would you hire someone from another city police force that was being taken out of the public's eye and demoted?
No.
Okay. Simple answer. Steve?
It would depend on the circumstances. I can't.
Let me, I will read this again. Would you hire someone from another city police force that was being taken out of the public's eye and demoted, for example, for shooting deaths? Serious crime.
No, I don't. The last thing that I want to do as a sheriff is take on somebody else's used baggage, quite frankly. So no, if they're not good enough to work at the agency they're at, then I don't believe they're good enough to work at the agency they're for us, the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. We can do better.
Okay. The next question, which I think may be our last question for you, is concerning the emphasis that you have on gang problems. Sheriff seems to be focusing on gang issues, and the questioner is concerned that there was some gang violence at the fairgrounds recently in the summer, which got out of control. How do you propose to stop violence, and how many gang issues have been reported in the last year? Can you respond to that first, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have to take it very seriously. This is an issue that keeps coming up on the campaign, and it's a question that, you know, everybody is very concerned about. Gangs are a really important issue to every citizen of this county, every citizen of this nation, quite frankly. The question is, what do we do about fixing the problem that we have? Well, we can take two approaches. We can hire more deputies, we can hire more law enforcement officers, and we can attack it that way. And you know what? That has to be part of the solution. But we also have to look at the other side of the coin and look upstream from what's happening. Look at the root causes of why gang violence is occurring, why youth are being involved in gangs, and look at that issue as well. To answer your question on calls, I can tell you that the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office codes every single call for service that it gets. So far this year, we've had about 20,000 calls for service. And of those, we've had one coded for gang activity. So,
Okay.
I hope that
So
answers your
only
question.
one issue that was reported.
that was
gang
cleared as
activity.
gang activity.
Okay.
Now, it isn't to say that's the only call that we responded to, but that's the only one that was cleared that way.
Okay. Sheriff Alfo, would you respond?
Could you
to that?
repeat the question, please?
Yes. You seem to be focusing on gang issues. If you can't stop violence at the fairgrounds with yourself in the sheriff booth and acting as security, how do you propose to stop anyone else? How many gang issues have been reported in the last year, and how do you plan to address them in the future?
Well, we've had 10 serious gang-related violent felonies reported in the last year, in the last 12 months. We had a serious shooting over on Texas Street. It was in the city of Bellingham, but our deputies intervened, where we had a 15-year-old shooting back and forth with a carload of gang people from Yakima that had just moved here. We had children in the neighborhood. It was just a few blocks from the Boys and Girls Club. I have focused, every police chief in Whatcom County, I know my opponent doesn't agree that there's a serious gang problem, believes there is. And we're working together to share resources, to develop strategies. I've taken our Northwest Regional Drug Task Force, we've co-located them with the DEA, and we're going to work the long-term strategic investigations that are needed to cut the head off the snake and eliminate the people that have served decades in prison in other states that have moved here to recruit vulnerable youth into gang organizations.
Thank you. Candidates, you now have an opportunity to give a 1-minute closing statement, and Steve, you will go first this time.
I want to clarify, I've never said that there isn't, I think I've answered the question. I believe it's a serious issue that we need to take a look at. I think it's being politicized. I think it's sexy to talk about gangs and everything that I'm going to do to combat them. But again, we have to really look at what issues we have. Look at how many calls that the sheriff's office is responsible for handling, not calls in the city limits. How many calls are the sheriff's office handling? But we do need to be serious about it. And like you said, cut the head off the snake. When we see that, we need to act on it. But again, what we respond to as law enforcement is a symptom of a bigger problem that we need to look at. I want to end it really quick if I have a chance. Just a quick story. If you come home and your door is kicked in, your house has been robbed, your items have been stolen, at that moment in time, you don't really care that there's been a 40% reduction in the crime rate since 2002. The only thing you care about is capturing the criminal and getting your stuff back. As you mentioned before, right now there's a 13.5% chance of that occurring. That's half the city limits of Bellingham. Linden is 50%. My name is Steve Harris, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alfo, your closing statement.
Well, I'm glad you've changed your position since the last forum and now say that gangs are a serious problem in Whatcom County. And I'll tell you, I'm focused on preventing gang violence, and how we do that is working with groups like the Boys and Girls Clubs of Whatcom County. I've been on the board there for 9 years. Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Some of these community-based organizations are going to be the prevention arm, but we need law enforcement to be the enforcement arm and drive this from our community before we end up like Yakima County or Grant County or even Skagit County. I began my law enforcement career at age 19. I've earned all my responsibility incrementally through a record of success. I've been a police chief, I've been a prosecuting attorney, I've been a city attorney, and I've built the essential relationships needed to get this job done. I'm on the board of the Bridget Collins, I work with the mental health community, I'm on a mental health board, I'm on the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm endorsed by every police chief in Whatcom County for re-election and every police organization that endorses, including the Deputy Sheriff's Guild that Steve led till a few months ago by an 82% margin. So law enforcement thinks I am the right leader. Thank you.
Okay, it is time. And thank you very much, both of you, for being here. Please join me in thanking the candidates for sheriff, Bill Alfo and Steve. Next, we'll proceed to the county executive segment of our forum, and Jane Freudenberger will give us some information regarding that office.
The county executive is the CEO of Whatcom County government. The executive manages a $175 million budget and approximately 800 employees. The executive supervises all administrative offices, recommends the annual budget to the council, and represents the county at local, state, and federal levels. The term of office is 4 years. It is a nonpartisan position, and the salary is $147,000 a year.
candidates come on up to the podium, please. Great. Good evening. Yeah, thank you for being here. And thank you, Jane. It's my pleasure to introduce Doug Erickson on your left and Jack Laus on your right. We are going to follow the same format and ground rules as we did before with the candidates for sheriff. I encourage the audience to give us your written questions, and we will ask as many questions as time permits. Start with the high roller of the dice, which was Doug Erickson, right? So you will go first in giving your opening statement of 1.5 minutes, please.
Well, great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight with you all and the League of Women Voters for hosting another successful forum about local politics. I'm Doug Erickson, and I am running for county executive. I currently serve the people of Whatcom County in the Washington State Senate and was first elected to the State House in 1998. I grew up here in Whatcom County, born and raised in Bellingham, Seaholm High School, class of 1987. Have my degree in government from Cornell University and a master's in environmental policy from our own Western Washington University. My wife Tasha is a school teacher at Squalicum High School, and we're raising our two daughters, Elsa and Addie, in the Ferndale area. Elsa is 11 and Addie is 9, and both attend schools in the Ferndale Public School District. Many people ask on the campaign trail why I would give up the seat of a Washington State Senator to be county executive. And I have to tell you, that's a tough choice. Being a state senator is a great honor, and to serve the people of the 42nd District is an incredible job. The 42nd District is really the most diverse legislative district we have in Washington State, with some of the most conservative areas in the North County and some of the most liberal areas here in downtown Bellingham. It's a great challenge, and it's a great honor to do that. But really, the reason why I would like to be county executive and leave that job is because I have a specific list of goals and items I'd like to accomplish for the people of Whatcom County. I love this area. It's a phenomenal area to live. And what's amazing as you travel and meet with the diverse groups, like on Tuesday night, I was in Linden with the Tea Party and in Bellingham with the Progressive Coalition. That's like going from the sauna to the plunge pool. It was an amazing day, an amazing evening, but we share a common goal, which is we love Whatcom County, we want to protect it, and we want to raise our families here.
Thank you. Jack Laus, you have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement, please.
Well, thanks to the League for putting on this forum this evening and making this broadcast possible. I appreciate the work that you're doing in the community. I understand that some of you may not know Jack as well as my friends and family do, so I'm just going to take a moment and tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Whatcom County, blessed to live in an area with many recreational opportunities and great people. I've been married to my wife Cindy for 31 years. We have 3 children, a daughter-in-law and a grandchild living in Whatcom County. And we've also been foster parents to 16 children. That's been a truly challenging but rewarding experience for Cindy and I. I've led Laus Trust, which was founded by my father, since 1983 through the start of this year when we turned the reins over to our son, BJ. We've survived the tough times in the construction industry with the help of great employees. And I've been able to expand this year, adding up to 36 new employees. My father also introduced me to local politics. He was elected to Whatcom County's first executive in 1979. And while running our family business, I served as councilman and as mayor of Linden for 8 years. I oversaw over $60 million worth of infrastructure projects during my tenure as mayor, including a library and a police station and a city hall. I've got the hands-on experience to do the job as county executive, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will begin the question and answer section with 2 questions from the League to start off with. And Doug, you're going to go first in responding to the question. How does your previous experience match up with the skills needed to manage a budget of $175 million and a staff of 800 in the job of county executive?
Well, I'll have to admit I've never managed 800 people before, but I have negotiated multi-billion-dollar budgets in the state legislature. And I think what you really need to be able to do is to have the core group of experience of being able to work in a diverse field with diverse people to put together those big budgets. And that's really what the legislative experience is all about. Negotiating the big budgets and doing the big items that have to happen for Whatcom County. The Guide Meridian being a great example, where we spent about $130 million of your tax dollars to fix the Guide Meridian project and get it done on time and on budget for the people of Whatcom County. to take that all the way through the process. But the other aspect I bring to this job is Whatcom County, the executive, we face many, many big issues in the coming years, whether it's SSA, building a new jail, whether it's how we deal with EMS, how we help out our farmers. The experience I bring to this job is unique from having been in that environment. So I'm the person that can bring them together to get that accomplished, and my experience in the legislature is one that we need to have here locally to be able to accomplish the things that we have. I've also sat across the table from the multinational corporations and negotiated deals with them. And that's what we're going to need as we go through the process, particularly at Cherry Point.
Thank you. Jack, would you respond to that question?
Well, I've had the experience working with multi-million-dollar budgets and working with numbers of people through my experiences as a private CEO and as mayor of Linden. Now, it's not multi-billion as it is in the state, but it is a lot of money, and it takes a lot of coordination and cooperation between many people to make that happen. One of the reasons that I was able to be mayor of Linden while I was the CEO of Laos Truss is because I engage people to be successful in their areas of expertise. And that's one of the skills that I bring to the job, is the ability to work with people and to allow the department heads to be successful in their areas. Also, I've actually built things. At Laos Truss, we've been in the production business for years, and as mayor, I've actually had to take the budgets and take action with them and make them happen at the end of the year. That experience, I think, is invaluable, and I'm looking forward to bringing that to the county executive's office.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you will respond to this. I'd like you to respond first to this one, Jack. Degradation of Lake Whatcom is a continuing concern. Since stormwater runoff has been identified as the #1 cause of adverse effects on our water quality, what specific steps would you take to mitigate the problem?
Well, one of the things that I've been talking about as we move forward as it relates to Lake Whatcom is that we've talked about Lake Whatcom for years, but we really haven't done enough in-the-ground projects to make a difference. I'm very happy with some of the studies that we have going on right now, and I'm looking forward to, in the next year, of taking some of the monies that we have from our real estate excise tax, from our flood tax, and from the conservation futures money that we have, and actually buy project-specific land so that we can take care of, as a community, take care of some water quality issues. Along with that, we've got to continue the education of the residents that are in the watershed so that individually we can also make an impact. I'm looking forward to coordinating with the city of Bellingham and with the Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District so that we can make a real impact in a short period of time to improve the quality of the lake water.
One more time on the question there.
Sure. Degradation of Lake Whatcom is a continuing concern. Since stormwater runoff has been identified as the #1 adverse effect on our water quality, what specific steps would you take to mitigate it?
Okay. First off, for the people of Bellingham, who of course live in Whatcom County and elect their county executive also, and the people who depend on Lake Whatcom for their water, it is not an option to go any other route than to have safe and clean drinking water for the people that depend upon it. That's the only alternative available to us, and that is the course we'll pursue to make sure that that happens. In the legislature, I worked on very hard and got passed the landscape management plan for Lake Whatcom, which was the one that put in place firmer guidelines for how we could conduct our forestry activities within the watershed itself. At the time when we did it, it wasn't easy. This was the first time in Washington State where we had separate rules from the DNR for logging within a specific watershed. But we got that accomplished, and we got that accomplished during a 49-49 tie in the State House, 49 Democrats and 49 Republicans, and we had to come together to get that accomplished. We'll take that same type of leadership and apply it to stormwater, because that is the issue that we have to address in Whatcom County on Lake Whatcom, is taking care of the stormwater that's currently in there, and we'll focus on the priorities and a cost of benefit analysis. And I would like to say I believe that is much better use of our dollar than the reconveyance of Lake Whatcom.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from the audience on Lake Whatcom again, and Doug, I'd like you to respond first now. How should the county respond to the Asian clams found in Lake Whatcom?
Yeah, that's a great question. Invasive species are a very serious threat both in our waterways, and again, at the legislative level, I have experience working on this one also from my time in the Natural Resources Committee, where we tried to put together state task force to address it in all of the bodies of water throughout Washington State. So I don't have a specific action plan ready for you this evening for how to handle that invasive species. But what we will do, And what I will do for the people of Whatcom County is put to use my experience of already having worked on this, knowing the people that we need to work with at Fish and Wildlife, both at the state level and at the federal level, to be able to address this issue, because it is a serious one and should not be taken lightly when you talk about invasive species. So we'll put together an action plan, we'll work on it, we'll bring people together to solve the problem, but there is no one thing I can say we will do this evening to help solve that problem specifically.
Jack, would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm doing fine,
Okay.
thanks. It's very unfortunate that the Asian clam is in Lake Whatcom, and it's my understanding right now that we're trying to determine to what extent it's there and to how much damage that they've already done. It's going to be interesting as we work through this over the next short period of time to find out what impact that they have on our current water quality issues. So one of the things we have to do is take a look at what's happened across the nation with this, and we need to take a look at the programs that the other agencies and the other states have done to counteract this invasive species. And we need to get the people together, we need to get the scientists at the table, and we're going to have to come up with an action plan. And it's unfortunate that we have this, and I'm committed to work on it, and I think that we can do as good a job as anybody can across the country in handling this invasive species.
Okay, thank you. So, Jack, I'd like you to respond first to the next question. Please describe your commitment to public information and transparency, including your specific plans to improve county government's transparency.
Well, I think that government is of the people and for the people, and we need to put everything that we can possibly onto our websites and into our data banks for public access. There are certain things as it relates to property purchases and personnel that I think that you need to trust your elected officials with, because there are laws and there's just priorities that we need to keep so that we do things efficiently for government. But I think if you look at my track record as mayor of Linden, that I'm an open person. I don't like to hold anything back. I like to shoot straight from the hip. I am who I am, and I think I have the ability to bring that to Whatcom County government for the benefit of everybody. It is very imperative that we have access as we go through, let's say, the Gateway Pacific project, that the information is available to everybody so that they can take a look at it and they can act on it if they'd like.
Okay.
Well, thanks. Number one thing is openness in government is a process you go through. And you have to have a set process in place to allow the public to be able to view what's going on and participate in what is happening. That is why I have proposed the most open, transparent, and public budgeting process Whatcom County has ever seen. It's called the Priorities of Government process to create a priority-based budget. And this isn't a new concept to how we budget at the state level, because Representative Kelly Linville introduced the POG process in Olympia, and Gary Locke and Dino Rossi used priorities of government to balance their budget without raising taxes. But what we'll do in Whatcom County is we'll lay it open. We'll take it to all four corners and hold meetings. We'll be in Acme. We'll be out there at all the different places in Point Roberts and Ferndale and Linden, meeting with groups like this, going over the budget, identifying our priorities in Whatcom County so we can fund them. It was Tony Larson who went through his own individual POG process to discover $200,000 of bonus pay or supplemental pay to Whatcom County executives. If we had gone through a POG process and laid that open to the public, they would have said, let's not be putting that $200,000 there, let's be putting that into law enforcement. The POG process will be open, public, and transparent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Doug, what is your work experience in the private sector?
My work experience in the private sector?
Yes.
Yeah. I've worked in the cruise ship industry in Alaska, and I've also worked in other capacities in the private sector. But obviously, the bulk of my experience is really what the bulk of the experience for the county executive will be, which is working in the public sector. And so that's where I've had most of my experience in the legislature in many different capacities. So I have had private sector experience. We have done the paychecks. We have built things. I have built my own homes, built the projects. But when you look at what Whatcom County is going to be dealing with, you really need the person who's been negotiating the big budgets, been negotiating with the multinational corporations, understands what it takes to move those things through the process.
Jack, what is your work experience in the private sector?
Well, I had my first job at 14 delivering milk for Al Brink in Linden, 5:30 in the mornings until about 6:45. Worked in the auto parts store through high school. went to work for my father in 1977 at then was Laus Construction. Then became Laus Truss, and I've been working there since then, along with doing the civic activities that I had as councilman and mayor. Beginning of this year, I did take a position at Snapper-Schuler-Kenner for a short period of time. It became evident that I needed to run for county executive, so I'm doing a little consulting for them at this point. So that's my work history on the private side. Thanks for asking the question.
Okay. Okay, Jack, will you, as county executive, push for the new Cherry Point Port project without a vote of the voters? If so, why?
Well, you know, we need good jobs in Whatcom County, and this presents an opportunity for us to look at. And the process, the way it goes, is that the owners of the land have the ability to apply for their permit. It's not something that's going to go to the vote of the people. What will happen is we'll go through a process that will include an environmental impact statement. We need to scope that fully and comprehensively. We need to take a good look at whether or not that application meets our land use priorities as we have written as of today. And the county council in the future is going to have the opportunity to say yes or no to that project. I think that it's very professional of the county executive to take a neutral approach on this and make sure that all of the people in Whatcom County have the opportunity to be heard as it relates to this, because that is the law. And it is a quasi-judicial process, and I'm looking forward to facilitating that in the coming months and years.
One more time on the specific question. Thanks.
Will you, as county executive, push for the new Cherry Point Port project without a vote of the voters? And if so, why?
Yeah. I think what we have to take into account is right now we have land at Cherry Point zoned heavy industrial. And we have a private company coming in to making the largest single investment Whatcom County has seen for the past 20 years and will probably see for the next 20 years. It's in the midst of a recession. This project will create 2,500 construction jobs and over 1,000 long-term jobs for the people of Whatcom County. I think this project needs a champion, and I'm the champion for this project. I think your county executive should step up, not be neutral, and actually lead on a project of this magnitude. This is huge, folks. We need to get it right. We need to have a public process, but you need to have leadership. If the county commissioners, when ARCO was built out at Cherry Point, had taken the position of my opponent of neutrality, we would not have those good paying jobs out there at ARCO right now at Cherry Point. ConocoPhillips would not be here, and Talco would not be here, and our county would be much worse off for it. We need leadership, you need clear vision, and you need a county executive who's not afraid to step up to the plate and say they'll be a champion of this project.
Okay. This is from the audience. Given that you have received stipends to attend all the ALEX conferences twice in 2 years, is it more important to represent global corporations like Exxon, Cook Brothers, Peabody Coal, than to respond to the local needs?
I'm the state senator for the people of Whatcom.
Would you please explain,
Is that for
Alex?
Jack? Is that for Jack question or is that for me?
I think it's for you, Doug.
Okay.
But I have forgotten what ALEC conference is. Can
The
you
state
help
level,
us?
when you're a state legislature, there are multiple professional organizations. You have the Council of State Governments, you have the American Legislative Exchange Council, you have the PNWAR, the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, multiple places where legislators gather to see what's working in other states. ALEC is a private organization, no tax dollars go to it, which is separate than the other organizations. And they come together, it's an organization based on Jeffersonian principles of free markets and limited government.
Thank you. But did you receive stipends from any corporations to attend those?
I did not receive a stipend from, this is such a silly line of conversation, by the way. No, there are no stipends from corporations to attend an ALEC event.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Do you have any comments on that topic?
Well, I'd just like to say that my experience has been local as it pertains to my government involvement. I've never been directly affiliated with either of the party, and this is a nonpartisan position. I didn't seek the endorsement of either of the party, and my desire is to serve everybody in Whatcom County, because local issues get solved locally, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
Okay. Jack, as county executive, how would you get the county and the city to start cooperating and stop fighting?
Well, it takes personal relationships first. I found that in business, that it takes winners on both sides of issues and both sides of problems and both sides of projects to be able to facilitate ongoing communication and on the private sector is so that somebody will come back and buy something from you again. But that experience relates very well to government, and I have a great relationship with Dan Pike, and I also have a great relationship with Kelly Linville. And either of those individuals would be great to work with. And one thing that people have told me is that I'm able to sit at the table, deal with issues, not make it personal, and keep trying to tear things down so that we can find where the common denominators are, and then start from that point, build outwardly from there so that we can make solutions that end up being wins for both. And I want Whatcom County, the city of Bellingham, and all the small cities to get along very well so that we can move Whatcom County forward in a positive manner.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, I do not believe that the divide between the county and the city is as great as some people try to make it out to be. We share so many common goals, and we'll work on common interests in the coming years. Whoever the mayor of Bellingham is in the coming years, I look forward to working with them to make sure we have a unified EMS system countywide, so we're maintaining our great level of advanced life support that gets to our people if they have an accident in a below average time with above average response. We'll maintain that, and we'll improve upon that, and we'll work with the city of Bellingham to get that accomplished. We'll make sure when we build the new jail, which we're going to get done in a timely and cost-effective fashion, we're working with the city of Bellingham as we move that out of the downtown core to a better facility at a larger site, that we're working with the city of Bellingham to accomplish it. So I don't believe there's this gigantic divide that people talk about. We live in Whatcom County. We work together. The 42nd legislative district that I've represented for 13 years now is the most diverse district in the state. And we've been bringing people together to get things accomplished during that 13 years. We'll continue to do it. But it's also about leadership and a clear vision. We're not going to agree with the city of Bellingham on every issue, but I'm not going to vote on the city of Bellingham budget. They're not going to vote on ours, and we're going to work together on our shared areas of interest to make it better in Whatcom County for all of us.
Okay. As kind of a follow-up on that topic, the city of Bellingham and the county seem to be in conflict over growth decisions and how to build up urban growth properties. How do you plan to resolve these differences as you're in your position? Doug, can you respond first?
Well, you work with the city of Bellingham. Let's just bring out one of our shared common goals that we have between the county and the city, and that's the preservation of ag land in Whatcom County, preservation of one of the largest industries we have. Currently, the way the Growth Management Act is working is it's forcing people out of the city into the rural areas to build homes because there's not housing stock available to them of the type they would like to have. So we need to address the Growth Management Act to make it work for the city of Bellingham to achieve their goal of maintaining and preserving farmland, and also to preserve the goal the county has of maintaining and preserving our farmland. That's a shared goal. It's not a conflict. And through communication, going through it together, looking at the stats and the statistics and finding out the best alternative, we'll be able to get that accomplished. We have a lot more shared interests than we have areas that divide us. And we have to remember that and stop focusing in on the things that divide us. Look at the things that draw us together as a community, because we all live here for a reason, because we love it in Whatcom County. It's a great place to live and raise a family, and we'll work to maintain that for generations to come.
Would you repeat the question,
yes.
please?
The city of Bellingham and the county seem to be in conflict over growth decisions, specifically in where they can build in the urban growth with boundaries. How do you plan to resolve the differences?
Well, I had the opportunity of chairing the Growth Management Coordinating Council for a period of about 18 months from, I think, about mid-2008 through 2009. And it became very evident that because of the challenges that the county were having with the State Growth Management Hearings Board, that the process got condensed into too short of a period of time. And a lot of the conflicts in my mind became conflicts because of that time crunch that we had, and we didn't have the opportunity to sit down at the table and work through all of the details because we just had this relentless clock ticking that we needed to get things done. What I've committed to is to get all of the stakeholders at the table right after the first of the year and whiteboard where we need to go and how we need to make the next process work more efficiently and smoother. Because if we don't start early on this, we're going to end up with a lot of the same challenges. They are solvable. We all have strong opinions, but like I say, we have those core values that we need to build from to make it work. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. One more question. Do you accept that Whatcom County's Department of Planning and Development Service is dysfunctional? Or perhaps it's not working as well as it should. If so, how would you propose to improve it?
Well, I think all levels of government and all levels of private business, you need to go through continuous improvement processes to make things better. Honestly, I have heard a lot of discontent concerning the planning department and building services department over the last 3 or 4 months. I'm looking forward to working with Sam Ryan and the other members of that department to do what we did in Linden is to go through a good code scrub so that we can get our codes in line with each other, so when somebody comes up to the desk and wants to do something that we can clearly articulate as a county what they need to do to get to where they want to go. That's number one that we need to do. There's good people in the planning department. There's good people throughout all of the departments in Whatcom County. And I can provide the leadership and the experience so that we can take what we have today and make it better for tomorrow. And I'm sure that in 4 or 8 or 12 years, when somebody else ends up being county executive, they'll be able to improve from there. Every day we need to make improvements, have the ability to make that happen.
Doug?
I definitely think there are some dysfunctional aspects within the planning and permitting department in Whatcom County. It needs to be fixed. It all depends on which side of the county you're on. If you're in there putting a permit application, and I'm currently going through a permit application for my barn I'm building on my property. I believe every person running for county office should have to be going through the permitting procedure while running for office. It's just a great eye-opening experience. And when I permitted both of my own houses out in Whatcom County also went through the process to build both of those structures out there. The permitting process since I built my second house has gotten worse for my barn building. So there are a lot of things that need to be fixed. Are there good people there? Yeah. They just haven't had the leadership and the strength to be able to stand up and fix the system internally. There are things that need to be fixed specifically within that, particularly when it comes to allowing people programmatic permits to be able to act on their land and be able to utilize it. I believe zoning should mean something. And if you have a piece of property that's zoned R5, you should have the right to be able to put your house upon that piece of property and live there with your family.
Thank you. Candidates, you now have an opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. And Jack, we will start with you.
Well, thanks again for the League for putting this on this evening and for each of you out here taking the time to learn more about your local candidates. My approach to solving issues is inclusive. I seek inputs from everyone, and I like all points of view. I'm able to collaborate and act decisively, as evidenced by my achievement in the private sector and as the public sector. I have the experience and the ability to lead Whatcom County as the next county executive. Have the experience to build a new jail, for processing the Gateway Pacific Terminal application, for creating an environment for new jobs, and balancing the budget. The backing of my candidacy is diverse, including conservatives, moderates, and liberals. I've been trained to be fair, accurate, and honest, and I'll do my best to serve you in that manner. I'm Jack Lowes, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Doug, please give your closing statement now.
Betcha. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thank you again to the League for hosting this event and putting it on television. This is a great campaign. It would be such an honor to serve the people of Whatcom County as your county executive. I cannot tell you the challenges that we face and the way that we can address them together. I just want to share with you tonight how focused I will be on private sector job creation, because that's what we need to have a county focused in on today. You know, my campaign is supported by the builders, the realtors. It's also supported by the firefighters and the longshoremen of Whatcom County, because they know I'll be focused in on real solutions for Whatcom County to move us forward. They're coming together and saying they can work with me to get that accomplished, and they know they can. On Tuesday night, I was at the Tea Party event in Linden, came into the Progressive Coalition meeting in Bellingham. Tonight before I came here, I was with the Green Party of Whatcom County. I will have the most open and transparent administration Whatcom County has ever seen, and we'll bring everybody together to solve our problems. It doesn't mean we'll always agree. It doesn't mean that every solution will be agreed to by every single person, but I am providing a clear vision for Whatcom County, a clear future, and providing the leadership that we're going to need to achieve it. So in this election, you have a clear choice. I hope that people will vote for jobs and vote for real leadership in the county executive's office.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking Doug Erickson and Jack Klaus for being here tonight and for running for office.
We're going to be changing moderators for the next portion, so I'd like to thank Annette Holcomb for doing just a fantastic job tonight. Next, we are going to talk about the council races. 3 of the county council positions are on the ballot this fall, and this is the job description of a county council member. The council is the legislative branch of Whatcom County government. 2 members serve each of the 3 districts with 1 at-large member. The council levies taxes, adopts the budget, councilpersons conduct public hearings, create land use rules, and dictate government policy. The 4-year term is a part-time, nonpartisan position, and the yearly salary is $20,000. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for the rest of the evening, and that is Mary Dumas, another one of our special league members.
Well, I'd like to welcome Alan Black and Barbara Brenner, candidates for Whatcom County Council District 3 positions. And I understand that you rolled dice before I got here.
What?
Did you roll dice before I got here? Who goes first? Does my dice roll? They are. Okay. And it looks like Barbara Brenner rolled high. I don't know, but you will be going first tonight.
Okay.
For people who might have just joined us, I want to note that we will be following the same format that was used for the prior questions. Each candidate will have an opening statement, and following that, we will have questions from the league and then some questions from the floor, and you will have a minute for the answers, and your timekeepers here will help support you in keeping on track with your time. So we'd like to start with your opening statements, 1.5 minutes. We have Barbara for you to start now.
Thank you. I am Barbara Brenner, and I'm your county council member. I have served this community as a county council member, and before that, as an activist for years. I led the charge to stop hundreds of tons a day of infectious waste that was coming into Whatcom County to an incinerator here that wasn't functioning well. The workers were getting sick. I couldn't get any help from my government. I did a 3-month sit-in with my kids down in the governor's office in Olympia to get anybody doing anything. I wrote an initiative and I got it stopped. This is how I function. I get along with everybody. I'm an independent, but I get along with everybody. I gotta say, this forum doesn't help me a whole lot. I'm the only person running for county office who has pledged to spend a mini campaign, which is, I won't spend more than $5,000. I've also refused all contributions. When people sent me checks, I ripped them up. I said, please send that money to the food bank. They really need it. This is how I operate. Everything I have on tonight, by the way, except my shoes and my underwear, all recycled. I'm a very frugal person. I'm also very compassionate. I don't think one precludes the other. I'm a social bleeding heart. I think it's really important that we work with the bridge nonprofits that help us in hard times. And I'm there for you, and I will continue to be there for you as your county council member.
Thank you, candidate Brenner. And your opening statement, Alan?
My name is Alan Black, and I'm running for Whatcom County Council. The council will be facing decisions that will determine the future character of Whatcom County. I feel I have an important contribution to make in determining that future. I currently serve on the Blaine City Council. I believe I have the character, skills, and abilities to represent the people of this county fairly and honestly. My background includes military service, union membership, and an engineering degree to grasp technical details. As an Army pilot in Vietnam, I was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for my decisions and actions under fire, which saved many lives. I also had an unblemished career as a pilot for United Airlines, retiring as captain flying 747s. I demonstrated discipline and focus in problem solving, often under stressful conditions. I was at all times required to demonstrate proficiency in making accurate decisions. I learned early, as one of 7 children raised in a blue-collar family, the value of a dollar and the necessity to spend every dollar wisely. Our resources are limited. County expenditures must follow wisely defined priorities and not exceed our available funds. My concerns fall under 2 main headings. First, to grow our local economy and create jobs, and second, to protect our environment. I am Alan Black, and I represent positive change.
Thank you. We do have some prepared questions, and we'll also take questions from the floor. So as you are listening, please remember to write up your questions with the position number on it, and the table will pass them to me so we can ask those as well. So to begin, we're going to start with candidate Barbara. We're going to ask, what will you do to help us reach compliance with the state's Growth Management Act as a Whatcom County Council member?
Well, I think I've worked very hard to help us reach compliance with the State Growth Management Act. I've not always been in the majority, and I think that we have made great concessions, and I think we're going to be very close to it. Anybody can sue us for anything. They do it. We get sued from every side of every issue with growth management. All we can do is the best we can do. I come to it with reading the information. I'm the up all night council person. I find all the details, and then I develop an answer. I think that's what you should expect from your council members. Because I am not in anybody's pocket and I'm not endorsed by anybody, I can make those decisions based on only the information I receive. And I've done this for you before, and I hope to do it again.
Thank you. Candidate Allen, what will you do to help us reach compliance with the state's Growth Management Act as a Whatcom County Council member?
Well, I can just tell one small story, and that is when I was out doorbelling, I spoke with a gentleman who had been visiting in Cornwall, England, and he says, I know what a Growth Management Act is. In your village is where people live, and outside of the village is where the farms are. And we don't extend the village into the farmland, and we don't expect the farmers to come live in the village. I have a feeling that the Growth Management Act, in all of its complexity, is still trying to resolve this basic issue, that we must make sure that we have certainty of what our land use policy should be, and that we can get infill into the cities to make sure we have enough housing within the city complex, and then outside of the city complex, assure the farmer that we have plenty of acreage to keep this economy, the farming economy, stable and dependable, and at least give the people in the community the assurance that they're going to have no changes in their zoning once they receive this Growth Management Act completion of the resolution of that act. Thank you.
This is a bit of a follow-up question. I'm going to ask it to Alan first, and then we'll reverse order here. What do you think is the role of zoning in protection of rural farmlands, given the concerns around private property rights?
Yes, it's a philosophical decision that we have to come to if we're going to be living in what you might call a socially responsible community. Farming and zoning, of course, the farmers all want to have the ability to zone their property so that they can develop it and reap the rewards of developing their property and being able to retire. But in order to maintain the accuracy or the perception that we have a strong farming community, which we're trying to preserve at least 100,000 acres of farming in Whatcom County so that we can be a sustainable community. But the farmers should be willing to understand and should know that we want to be able to purchase development rights in order to preserve their farming, and we also want to be able to do a transfer of development rights, and we also want to have loans for new young farmers and training for new young farmers so that the farmland doesn't really go out of production. Zoning is so important to keep our farmland in production.
Thank you. Would you like the question again?
Yeah, well, we already have most of those programs, and they aren't working. You do not protect the farmer if you don't protect what he does. You know, everybody talks about protecting ag land, protecting farmland. We have to protect the farmer and make sure we're doing what the farmer needs done. I'll give you a perfect example. I'm on 2 acres, a recycled house, an old farmhouse. We restored it. We were on the Sustainable Connections tour of low-impact development. I want my property to be able to be a bank for the farmers who live near me so that they can clean out their ditches, so they can do other things without having to go through such a maze of problems with, you know, every level of government that they can't get it done. We need to be there, and we, not everybody else, we need to be part of the solution.
We do have some questions from the floor. This one, it will be directed to both candidates. We'll have Barbara go first. What is your position on big box expansion if the cities won't allow it within their areas?
If the cities won't what?
Allow it within their zoned areas.
Well, I got a lot of flack for it, but I drafted an ordinance for the county years ago to limit the size of box stores in the county to ensure that they are in the city. Then when the city of Bellingham did a limit on them, I went and spoke to the city council members. I said, you know, limit the future ones, but please allow that what's already here to expand. We've got to have it, it's got to be a two-way street between the county and the city. And unfortunately, they did limit it. Now they're relooking at their sizes, but the county has already committed to limiting big box stores. Big box stores need urban level of service. The county, we are supposed to be providing rural level of service. When we provide urban level of service, it costs all the taxpayers a lot of money.
Would you like the question again?
Yes, please.
What is your position on big box store expansion if the cities won't allow it within their zoned areas?
Well, big box stores, as we have all seen, are the stores where we see the majority or an enormous amount of economic activity. So the big box stores apparently, whether they're being shopped by local citizens or by citizens from across the border, big box stores seem to be a major economic generator for our community. I believe that big box stores can be successfully maintained in a prescribed area, to not let big box stores simply proliferate wherever we want them to go, but to maintain them in a prescribed area so that we don't lose this idea of having a central downtown area or a central shopping area where people can go to shop in the big box stores. And I'm also thinking that the rest of your question was, how will we expand big box stores?
No, about expansion, allowing expansion for big box stores.
Allowing expansion? I feel that the standard stores that we're talking about now do have an optimum size when they come into a community, and the idea of expanding the store would be, I think, a difficult thing to judge unless there was a huge expansion in the community's population to justify a much larger store.
We have another question from the floor. This is a series of 3 questions, and so I'll ask them to each of you. The first is, do you have a living wage job? How do you define a living wage job? And how will you work for more living wage jobs in Whatcom County? So first, to candidate Black, do you have a living wage job? How do you define a living wage job? And how will you be working for more living wage jobs in our community?
Well, as I probably have let all of you know by now, I am retired. I do not have a job right now. I'm living on a pension and Social Security, so I do not have a living wage job. But I would consider a living wage job, no matter what the country or the climate, is where you have enough to pay for your food, your clothing, your shelter, and some entertainment for your family and education for your family, and still have a little bit left over. Well, now what those numbers will vary from area to area, but a living wage job to me is one in which you are able to satisfy the needs of your family, any growing family, whether it's for medical or whether it's for education, that you have enough money to do the things you need for your family and also have a little bit left over for recreation. There was a third part to that question.
There was a third, but unfortunately the time is up on your question.
Thank you.
Barbara, I'll read them
Please.
again. Do you have a living wage job? How do you define a living wage job? And how will you work for more living wage jobs in our community?
I make $20,000 a year. I don't know if you call that living wage. I wouldn't. But when I first got on the council, my husband and I were earning very little money. We had our own business, and we were doing well, but we weren't earning much money. To me, a living wage job has to do with you being able to survive on it and satisfy your needs. And your needs are different from your wants. I think our needs should be satisfied, but I don't think everybody's wants are part of what we determine a living wage job. I live very frugally. Everything's recycled with me. I've never had a new vehicle. I've never had a new house. I've never had a new anything. And I feel like we also have to pay attention to what we do and how we live. And I think, I don't expect everybody to live like me, but I think it puts me in a very good position to be able to make determinations on living wages and money spent.
Keep your questions coming. We have plenty of time, so don't be shy. And we've got another one. And this time we'll start and alternate. It will be candidate Brenner who'll answer. Do you agree with the land grab and changes of lot consolidation that we see happening in the county?
That's kind of a loaded land grab. I'm not sure what people mean. I feel very strongly that people deserve predictability, and that if we're going to change zoning that isn't required by the state or feds or anybody else, that we should only be doing it if it's for public health. I think that's very important. And when we do something for public health, we're doing it for the public. And I think if we do something for the public, there should be compensation offered. And we've dealt with that at the county level already. I think it's something that's very important. People have to expect predictability from their government. Nobody wins if we don't have predictability. And the mention before about the farmers, they need to do this. The farmers keep their lots as they are because they are concerned that they won't be able to be farming. So if we're going to do that, we have to make sure our farmers can keep farming.
Would you like the question again, candidate Black? Do you agree with the land grab and changes in lot consolidation that we see happening in the county?
Well, I'm getting to the point now where I just have to say, according to the founding fathers, there are times when you come into a community and you wish you could know every issue. You wish you could have all of the knowledge under your brain that you can answer every question. But in this case, I'll just say I will be one of those individuals who will come into government with what you might call a clean slate. I don't have access to grind, and I don't have personal prejudices or other ideas about how government should be run, but I do know that I can give an honest and fair account of myself in a government position. It's the Jeffersonian ideal of being able to go into government from a private life, and then once you've served your fellow citizens, then you can leave the government again. So I will just say, talking about things like land grab and consolidation of lots, I have not the area of expertise to be able to answer that question accurately.
Thank you. We are going to wrap up this 20-minute segment of the debate for this position with a closing statement from each of the candidates. And you will have 1 minute for your closing statement. And we're going to start with you, candidate Black, and finish with you, candidate Brenner.
I thank you, and I thank the League of Women Voters for providing this opportunity to hear these wonderful candidates speak tonight. In summary, I'm able to analyze situations and seek good solutions. I'm open-minded and a good listener. I support transparency that includes and respects inputs from all citizens. We need creative, forward-thinking, and resourceful efforts to grow local jobs and increase job training opportunities. I support programs to reduce the need for inmate beds to control the costs of our new jail. We need to protect the watershed of Lake Whatcom, keep farming sustainable, and regarding the coal port facility, I would insist on a clear and honest answers to questions of human health and quality of life. All citizen concerns must be heard in this project. I have accepted endorsements and donations to inform the voters of my character and my values, and I am indebted to no one. I am Alan Black, and I represent positive change.
Again, I'm Barbara Brenner, and I am your representative, and I'm not broken, and I don't need to be replaced. And when it is time that I'm not serving you, yeah, kick me out, please do. But right now, I've got as much energy as ever. The reason I said something and I didn't finish it, the reason why this forum isn't as good for me, I designed these. My husband, who's my rock over there, Ed Morris, he did them on his computer. We went and copied them ourselves. I can't give these out. There's so much about me and the volunteering and all the time I've spent helping people in Whatcom County, and it's all on this flyer, and I can't give it out. So I hope you folks will contact me. I am Barbara Brenner. I am your representative. My home phone number is 384-2762. You can email me at bbgun1010@aol.com. I get back to everybody. You even contact the council and I get back to you. I always get back to people and I help everybody. Please keep me there. Barbara Brenner, thank you.
Well, let me invite you to thank both these candidates for running for office in our community. And we now will be hearing from the Whatcom County Council District 2 candidates. We have Christina McGinnis and Sam Crawford joining us. The dice have been rolled, and it looks like Christina will be beginning with the opening statement. And if you have specific questions that are germane to this district in particular, please note that on the top of the card, and we'll make sure they get asked in this particular debate. If it's general, you can leave it general, and we'll ask it to all. Welcome, and thank you. We'd like for you to start with your opening statement.
Okay, well, thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum and for broadcasting it on television so folks that couldn't make it to be in the audience tonight can hear the questions asked of your candidates. My name is Christina McGinnis, and I am running for the Whatcom County Council District 2 seat. I think that listening to the public is one of the most important aspects of this job, as is being very well informed on a variety of critical issues that come up to the council on a weekly basis. And I know that my technical science background will allow me to ask the tough questions and share honest answers on the coal terminal and on having a good open public process when we decide on a new jail. With large projects like the new jail and the coal terminal, you need to trust that your county council is informed, will listen to the public, and will represent your values before they vote on a project. When deciding on a new jail, we definitely need more alternatives to jail so that people can continue to be productive members of our community, and I support jail alternative programs as well as like the daily check-in programs, work crews, alcohol and substance abuse treatment programs, as well as mental health support so that people can get treatment and not just be put in jail. We have an amazing team right now of well-trained firefighters and EMTs on our current unified EMS system. And as our county grows, we need to ensure that public safety is one of our top priorities. And I'll keep families safe by working for a fast response if you have to call 911. Thank you very much. I would appreciate your support in this critical Whatcom County Council race.
Thank you. And candidate Crawford, your turn.
Hello, my name is Sam Crawford. I currently serve on the Whatcom County Council, and I am running for re-election. I appreciate the topics that my opponent has brought up here. I think we all know as a community they are very important topics. Certainly the placement and location and size of a new jail is a critical issue. I've been involved in that issue for a number of years, and we're moving forward. Today, we could bond up to $70 million and get underway with construction of that jail, and on the county council, I want to make sure we get that done right away. Real quickly, I've only got about a minute here, so instead of me talking about my accomplishments, I just wanted to share with you a few things that have been written recently in this campaign in support of me. One is a quote from Dan and Barbara Sanford. They own a growing business here in Bellingham, a retail business, and they said, "Sam Crawford has always come through to support small business throughout Whatcom County." And I have a background in business, and I brought that financial oversight to the county budget. And we have in spite of the recession, maintained a minimum 10% reserve level of our general fund, which basically means we have not had to raise your taxes. In fact, I have not voted for a property tax increase for anyone in Whatcom County in the 12 years I've been on the council. Agriculture also is very important in Whatcom County, and Jeff Rainey, who owns Coldstream Farms in the Acme Valley, said, as agriculture in Whatcom County adapts to changing markets, Sam is always there to make sure farmers are listened to. Thank you.
We do have questions from the league, and we will be going in the order of the dice and then alternating, just to remind you. So Candidate McGinnis, you will be first for this question. What is your perspective on the council's practice of transferring monies from voter-approved funds, such as conservation futures or mental health tax, into the Whatcom County General Fund?
Well, on this question, I think that when the voters are approving funds to be spent in a county budget, that we need to respect the wishes of the voters to make sure those funds are spent. At the same time, I know from talking to other council members that every year when we come up with budget shortfalls in certain categories, there always seems to be the concern that other services that are just as critical but are underfunded need to make sure that they're funded. And so what I've heard from other council members is every year it's really a tough decision from how to make up the shortfalls in the budget. And if elected in November, what I would pledge is that if we have a fund that has a dedicated fund, that we make sure that we're spending that money on good projects and that we are filling other critical funds with other funding. We shouldn't be taking from one fund to make up for another that we don't have enough funding in, if that is really a priority for the citizens of Whatcom County.
Would you like the question again?
No, I think I understood it, and generally, I've supported budgets in which we do make some shifts between funds. This is important because we need to ensure that your basic services, such as law enforcement, public health, and safety, are always the highest priority. And when most of those critical issues are funded out of the general fund, when the general fund falls short, we only have two options. We can either go back to you and say we want you to pay more in taxes, or we can look at other fund balances and say, is this as high a priority? When it comes to Conservation Futures Fund, we have taken a look. I don't believe we've done a shift of that, but we have reviewed that and considered that. We've also made shifts between the road fund to the county general fund. When it comes to the mental health sales tax, by state law, that could not be diverted. That has to be used for jail alternative programs. I did support that, increasing that sales tax to do that, and I intend to continue to support those types of programs.
Another question from the league here. We are curious, and this is going to switch to you, Candidate Crawford. Given most of the land that abuts Lake Whatcom is located within the county's jurisdiction, what specific actions will you advocate as a council member concerning Lake Whatcom?
Right now, we are involved in several projects. The most notable is the Silver Beach Creek restoration project that will deal with treating stormwater that goes into Lake Whatcom. We've identified, the Department of Ecology along with the county and the city have identified phosphorus as being the key bad ingredient to Lake Whatcom that depletes oxygen and causes algae and causes deterioration of the lake. So I am supporting on the ground hard dollars to fix the biggest inputs of the dirty stormwater into Lake Whatcom, and that's where I think our priorities need to be. My opponent has suggested removing all the boats off of Lake Whatcom. That was a big community debate a number of years ago. And recently, Dr. Goldfogle, our county medical examiner, says that she has said that she wants to eliminate swimming in Lake Whatcom. I don't believe fencing off Blodell Donovan Park is any kind of solution.
Thank you. Candidate McGinnis.
Well, in response to what Mr. Crawford just said, I have never said that I did not want swimming in Lake Whatcom. And the reason for the statement that I made on recreation and boating on Lake Whatcom was because of the threat of invasive species, which now we've actually found Asian clams in Lake Whatcom, which they're on Blodell Donovan beaches, they're down by Lakewood. The city and the county are both doing efforts to do beach screenings to find out how bad this problem is, because very quickly we're going to need to pay for efforts to eradicate Asian clams in Lake Whatcom. And what I would like to see is that's not the #1 priority, but right now in our community, if we don't deal with it, it will become our #1 priority. And I want to make sure that we have resources to clean up the phosphorus problem. #1, we need to make sure we get more stormwater treatment facilities on the ground. The county has only completed a few to date. We need to work with homeowners to do voluntary projects on their properties to do infiltration of stormwater on site. And then we also need to work to help remove development rights from the watershed. Thank you very much.
Now we're taking questions from the floor. And the first will go to candidate McGinnis. What are your thoughts on the proposed Gateway Pacific Terminal at Jerry Point?
Thank you. That's a really hot topic right now in our community, and it's definitely a game changer for us going forward. Right now, I'm looking at all of the information that's coming in from SSA, everything that's getting posted to the state website as well as the county's website for what the project is. I think that trust and transparency are critical. We as a community need to know what's being proposed before any decisions are made on the county council, and I think we also need to make sure that priority 1, SSA, the project proponent, is following our local and our state laws. That's very critical with this project because there are so many jobs involved, as well as so many potential environmental impacts to property values from increased rail train traffic, as well as noise, as well as potential health impacts from coal being the main commodity at the SSA coal terminal. So I think that our community needs to weigh in on this topic. As your potential elected county council representative, I want to hear from the public, and we'll be listening very closely to the public as we are looking at this project.
Candidate Crawford.
Yes, I think it goes without saying that this proposal, as I understand it, is probably the biggest single development project, at least in terms of dollars and probably in terms of scale, that Whatcom County has ever looked at. And there's benefits such as jobs. There's the downside of the environmental impacts and a lot of discussion about trains going through Bellingham. Those are very serious concerns, and I am committed to taking the information that has not yet been submitted, but we're waiting for that process to occur, and evaluate that closely and make sure that if there are more trains going through Bellingham or coal dust or on-site impacts, that those are mitigated and the environment is protected, as well as your lifestyle and environment in Bellingham if you live near the railroad tracks.
Thank you. So another question from the floor. We'll start with candidate Crawford. Do you see a conflict of interest in being a land use consultant and serving on the county council? Why or why not?
Well, I guess, no, I obviously don't see a conflict of interest. However, you know, we've got to remember that the county council makes all the land use regulations, and when we pass a new law, that has a direct impact on the property owners if they decide to do something with their property. So I guess I don't see a conflict there. What I do is assist individual landowners. My opponent has wrongfully characterized that somehow I represent big developers or something along that line. That's pretty crazy. I know a lot of good folks out there in Whatcom County who have chosen to build a house on their property. They have the right to do that, and I assist them through the permitting process. It's a bureaucratic mess out there, and we're doing a lot on the county council to try to streamline those permit processes so that people can do what they rightfully deserve to do on their property.
Thank you. And we will allow you to answer the question, though, while it's not directed to you. Philosophically, do you see a conflict of interest in being a land use consultant and serving on a county council? Why or why not?
I think philosophically that if you're a land use consultant and you do not work in the county where you are representing the public, that there's not a conflict of interest. I think that there is too much of what could be perceived as a conflict of interest when you don't make any kind of public statement about the clients that you're serving when week in and week out you are making land use decisions to upzone certain areas and downzone certain areas of land where certain clients may or may not live. I think that you as an elected official, anyone as an elected official, really needs to make sure that the public knows that they're the ones being represented, not somebody who would be paying you to represent them. In my job, I'm a public servant, and I'm running for the county council because I want to make sure that the public's voice is the voice being heard in all of our decisions, not just around land use, but also around our quality of life and creating more jobs, as well as making sure that we can continue to work with our farmers to continue to keep our farming economy strong here in Whatcom County. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question, and this time candidate McGinnis will go first. What do you think can be done to bring the building permits, sewer systems, and land enhancement issues on agriculturally zoned properties into check?
Again.
It's a tough question, but I'll restate. What can be done to bring the building permits, sewer systems, and land enhancement issues taking place on agriculturally zoned properties into check?
Okay, well, I think number one, we need to make sure that we get our land use laws right. We need to keep urban areas and rural areas very clearly defined. When we're dealing with rural landowners, we need to make sure that we give farmers and other rural landowners more certainty that that they can continue farming and continue to live on large acreage. I think one of the biggest concerns I have with our land use plans is we keep upzoning and downzoning areas, and that doesn't give anyone who's a landowner any certainty around what is going to happen to their property. So I think we need to make sure that we're following the state land use laws, as well as our local county code, which defines how we're going to grow and where we want to put our next group of development as we grow. I think in terms of dealing with on-site septic laws, which is probably what you're asking about with sewer systems, we need to make sure that homeowners who are installing septics are getting them properly maintained so that we're not contributing more water quality pollution and bacteria to our water resources. And then I also think we need to make sure that everyone who works with the planning department can actually get their building permits and understand them. Thank you.
As far as farmers and permitting processes go, in Whatcom County, I've been a strong supporter of what we call the Right to Farm ordinance. And that ensures that folks that live in the agricultural area understand, especially the ones that aren't farmers, that farming is our key priority out there. The Whatcom County agriculture industry sells more than $300 million worth of product every year out of Whatcom County. 98% of that, by the way, leaves Whatcom County. And we need to continue to support farmers. That's why when I started, I read this statement from Jeff Rainey out in Acme Valley, who said, "Sam is always there to make sure farmers have a voice in county decisions." Just this morning, I was sitting on the Economic Development Investment Board, and one idea that came up was, since we're sending out 98% of our milk product, why not use the shipping facility, the proposed shipping facility at Cherry Point? The stuff all gets shipped to Asia, but we're loading it through Tacoma. Maybe we'd like to see that done locally.
Thank you. We will now shift to the closing statements, and we will allow candidate Crawford to go first. You'll have a 1-minute closing statement, and then candidate McGinnis.
Well, this is an interesting evening for me because candidate McGinnis and I have been through a lot of forums, and I think this is the last one, if I read my schedule correctly, that we're going to be standing side by side.
One more next week.
Maybe there's one
Farm
more?
Bureau.
Okay, I'll have to check my calendar again. But in any case, some interesting contrasts have come out between us, but I will say that I think I've demonstrated for a very long time on the county council that I'm willing to fairly listen to the issues. I don't come from a regulatory or bureaucratic background where we use the heavy hammer. Going back to this issue with farmers, For example, a lot of people wanted us to shut the farmers down in terms of any residential development, but the farmers came to us and said, let's make it so we can still build a family farm home so our kids can continue this. It's those kinds of win-win decisions that need to be made. My name is Sam Crawford, running for County Council, and I certainly would appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Well, please join me in thanking, sorry. Apologies.
Thank you.
I jumped the gun.
So my name is Christina McGinnis, and Whatcom County is at a crossroads right now on so many defining issues, and it's definitely time for a change after 12 years of Sam Crawford. We need new leaders to make sure that we're growing local businesses and finding solutions to our land use plans, not expensive lawsuits. We also need to prioritize our natural resources and safeguarding public health, and also supporting agriculture as a central part of our economy. Over the past 8 years, I've made Whatcom County my home. My husband and I are very proud to be raising our 2-year-old son here, and when elected, I pledged to be a voice for the citizens of Whatcom County and find solutions to a lot of these critical problems that we're currently facing. I will not wait another 4 years to find solutions for a jail or land use plans. Those are 2 of my top priorities, and I'm so glad that I'm living in Whatcom County and have the opportunity to step up to serve the public here. Christina McGinnis, and I would be honored with your vote in this critical Whatcom County Council race. Thank you very much.
Now let's us thank them both for coming. So we're now welcoming Whatcom County Council District 1 candidates to the podium. Tony Larson and Pete Kremen will be debating tonight, and we have opening statements. And I understand that you won the dice roll, and Kremen will be opening and giving his opening remarks first.
No, I actually chose to go second.
You chose to go second. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tony Larson. Clearly, we're in a difficult economic environment, and we need new solutions. There are more than 5,000 fewer jobs today in Whatcom County than there were 2 years ago. Small businesses, farmers, and many of our job creators are struggling. Local bankruptcies are at an all-time high. Whatcom County's general fund budget is facing a $6.4 million shortfall. At the same time, we've cut in the last budget $900,000 out of the Sheriff's Department, public safety. It's never been more important to understand that our economy is the key driver of our quality of life. Without a strong and robust economy, our quality of life is at risk. On the Whatcom County Council, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to encourage and support job creators in our community. I've been doing that for the past 25 years. All day today, I was at the Sportsplex in Bellingham, where I hosted 70 local companies and business leaders from around the region. I partnered with the Northwest Economic Council, the local Chamber of Commerce, the Technology Alliance Group, Sustainable Connections, to bring in business owners from some of our most successful local companies to share their ideas on how to help others succeed. Heath Techna was there accepting resumes to hire workers for their new expansion. As an employer for many years, I've managed companies in both prosperous and difficult times. I understand budgets and financial statements. I understand the importance of fiscal discipline. I believe that's what we need in local government today. We need new ideas, we need creative thinking, we need a fresh perspective.
My name's Pete Kremen, and I've been your county executive for the last 16 years and the longest serving county executive in state history. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you in that capacity. And prior to that, I served 6 terms in the Washington State House of Representatives in the 42nd Legislative District. I'm very proud to say that when I took the reins of county government 16 years ago, my predecessor left me with $400,000 in the reserve fund. In 16 years, without raising the county's portion of the property tax, I'm proud to say that I'm leaving my successor more than $10.6 million in the reserve fund, again, without raising the county's portion of the property taxes. And at the same time, we're one of the few counties in the entire state out of 39 that have been able to maintain a full complement of sheriff's deputies to take care of crime prevention and public safety in our community. I'm very proud of that. I want to serve the people of Whatcom County on this county council. I've been a representative before. I want to go back to that charge, representing the community that I've lived in for 37 years, I cherish and love, and I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. My name is Pete Kremen.
Thank you. So we do have some questions. Some we have asked in earlier races, and we will repeat some, but there are some fresh questions. So just want to give people some understanding that the questions were for all possible candidates. Given that most of the land that abuts Lake Whatcom is located within the county's jurisdiction, what specific actions will you advocate as a council member concerning Lake Whatcom? And we will start with candidate Kremen.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a very important one. It's not common knowledge, but I offered and got the county council to adopt the first emergency ban on subdivisions within Lake Whatcom. Urbanization is the #1 problem with Lake Whatcom, has been and will always be. I offered a plan to the county council just recently that would have reduced just by about 10 or 12 lots within the entire Lake Whatcom watershed. And unfortunately, with the help of my opponent, the council turned that down. I think that was a shame. I also think that the Lake Whatcom Forest Preserve, the potential to acquire 8,700 acres for a mere $291,000 is the buy of a lifetime, and that will help to protect Lake Whatcom for posterity.
Candidate Larson, would you like the question again?
Got it, thank you.
Okay.
Over the last 16 years, when my opponent has been the CEO of the county, every 4 years his top priority has been Lake Whatcom. But yet over the last 16 years, when we've had an abundant resources, 13 of the last 16 years we've been in an economic boom. We've had plenty of money with the county, reserves were up, and yet the water quality has diminished. You know, my question is really, what is he believe he really can do over the next 4 years on council that he didn't have the opportunity to do over the last 16 as the county executive? What I believe we need to do is we need to focus on changing the water quality, reversing the trend. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we have a measurable way to understand what is impacting water quality. There's, I think somebody earlier mentioned the stormwater project in Silver Beach, the pilot project. That's going to give us an opportunity to literally check and see, manage and measure the impact of that project. If that project is successful, I would completely support investment in infrastructure and those kind of stormwater projects all around the lake.
Thank you. We do have a follow-up question on the lake, so you can expand a little more, and you'll actually go first this time. Do you support or oppose the reconveyance of nearly 9,000 acres of Department of Natural Resource Forestry lands to Whatcom County for the purpose of parkland? Why or why not?
Thank you. No, I do not support it. And the reason for that is that number one, it's not $291,000. That's what we've spent so far. Currently, that land is owned, it's public land. It's undevelopable land. It's owned by the Department of Natural Resources, the state of Washington. They are managing it under the Lake Whatcom landslide plan under the tightest environmental requirements possible. Essentially, what we're looking at, there's the junior taxing districts are currently generating revenues for the Mount Baker School District, the school district. We can't afford to eliminate those revenues at a time when we don't have the money. If we turn that into a park, and right now, by the way, hikers can use the park. It's open to the public. What I believe it would do is it would put more people in the Lake Whatcom watershed. It would create liability for our community. And I just don't think that this is the right time to do it. There are, we would essentially be taking on substantial more costs as well as a result of...
Time. Candidate Kremen, would you like the question again?
Please.
Okay. Do you support or oppose the reconveyance of nearly 9,000 acres of Department of Natural Resource Forestry lands to Whatcom County for the purpose of parkland? Why or why not?
I not only support it, but I'm a champion of it. I think it's an opportunity of a lifetime to preserve between 1/4 and 1/3 of the entire Lake Whatcom watershed for posterity that will someday wind up being essentially an old growth forest minutes from an urban area. And if my opponent read his own publication, there was a man by the name of John Giannoffrio who wrote an article that expressed the importance not only for the environment, but economically having recreational light impact, recreational opportunities that this would offer would be a boon to the overall Whatcom County economy, and that's why I support the Lake Whatcom Forest Preserve.
Thank you. We're going to move to some questions from the floor, so if you have more, please keep them coming. We're going to revisit one that we've asked to ask again. This has to do with how do you define living wage jobs, and how will you work for more living wage jobs in Whatcom County as a council member? And we'll start with you.
Living wage jobs, you know, we talk about people should be able to afford housing, but one of the challenges is that when we talk about affordable housing, no house is affordable when you don't have a job. You know, that's one of the biggest challenges that we face now, is that families are hurting, businesses are struggling, and what we need to do is figure out a way to turn that around. And the way that we're going to turn that around is by supporting and encouraging those that create jobs, the job creators. You know, that is probably one of our biggest challenges, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to expedite the permit process, that we're not stifling businesses. I mean, farmers out in the community, I talk to them all the time. As I believe Mr. Crawford said earlier, that's a $300+ million industry, but their farms are becoming economically unviable to farm as a result of the stifling regulations and challenges that we're putting on them.
She's going to lift the red one on you, so we will have a chance for more questions. I want to give you a chance to answer this one. How do you define a living wage job, and how will you be working to increase or work for more living wage jobs in Whatcom County?
One of the problems with Whatcom County is that forever, since I can remember and beyond, the cost of living in Bellingham and Whatcom County is above normal. And the wages in Whatcom County are below normal. That's not a good thing to have. We need to assist our existing businesses to thrive and to expand. We also need to attract businesses that are consistent with Whatcom County values that will generate higher wage jobs. We have plenty of jobs in Whatcom County. Most of them are low-wage jobs. We have a lot of underemployment, and we need to make sure that we acquire and facilitate the additional jobs here with high wages.
So we do have another question on the proposed Gateway Pacific Terminal at Cherry Point. Candidate Kremen, what are your thoughts on the proposed project?
Well, I certainly have concerns with the project. Yes, there is the opportunity for some initial high-wage jobs, whether in the final analysis when the initial construction phase is completed, how many really high-wage jobs will be created remains to be seen. But that project is going to have to go through a litany of scrutiny from a myriad of agencies, the EPA, the DOE, the DNR, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Army Corps of Engineers, Whatcom County. And I think that the bar is high. I think that the scope for approval should be wide and regional, not just confined to Whatcom County. So I have concerns, and like the other candidates, I really am not able to say whether I'm for it or against it, because I would be acting on a quasi-judicial body.
Candidate Larson, would you like the question, or?
Thank you.
You've got it. Thank you.
As of June 10th, 2011, SSA Marine filed a permit with the county, and the prosecutor's office for us sitting council members have admonished us not to listen to media reports and speak on this on specific terms. But I can say on general terms, anytime a company is interested and willing to invest $750 million in our community at a time when the construction industry is facing 30% unemployment, we have to take that kind of project seriously. And we need to treat that company and that project fairly. And that's really what our role on county council is going to be. I mean, we are going to be acting on the permit process. And I think what we need to do is put ourselves in a position where if it's moving forward, that we understand what the issues are and we treat the whole process fairly, and we put ourselves in a position so that we can mitigate any of the problems that may occur. I don't know exactly what those problems are, except I know that there's some rail issues, and I know that there's coal dust issues, and those are the things that we're going to have to be looking at.
Thank you. We're going to revisit an earlier question. What is your perspective on the practice of the council transferring monies from the voter-approved funds, such as conservation futures, into the Whatcom County General Fund? Did I ask you that already? I apologize.
No, I'm just wondering who goes first.
It's you. You go first.
I think. It's a practice that's been taking place far too long, and it's got to stop. You know, we've got a $6.4 million shortfall in the general fund this year, and it's expected to get bigger. It's projected to get bigger. And what's happened is there's been a shell game going on. When we had a $26 million surplus in 2006, and if we did not transition money, if the executive did not transition money from a number of these funds, like the jail fund that's generated $20 million since 2004, but it's got $3 million in it now, we don't have a new jail built. The Conservation Futures Fund, on my very first night on the council last November, the executive had proposed to transition money over from the Conservation Futures Fund. I was the vote that stopped it. I was the swing vote. It's 57% of the voters said that that's what they wanted that money spent for, environmental protection, environmental preservation. I think that's what we ought to use it for. We've got a challenge because we need to get our budget in the general fund in line, and it hasn't been for quite some time.
Thank you. Candidate.
I don't remember what the question was because I
restate it.
think my opponent strayed a little bit, but go ahead.
What is your perspective on the practice of the council transferring monies from voter-approved funds, such as conservation futures, into the county's general fund?
I'm generally opposed to it. However, in terms of the Conservation Futures Fund, the council did approve last year transferring half of the fund, which is it generates about $1.1 million a year. The reason we did that was because the fund was extremely flush. It was, I think, as large or larger than it had ever been in the history of the fund itself. And we were still going to add $540,000 annually. Now, the reason we did this, in my opinion, is that over the 16 years that I've been county executive, we have acquired 21 parks totaling thousands of acres of special natural places for our community and for visitors to enjoy for posterity. And in terms of the severity of the economic downturn, we still were going to add another more than $500,000 to the fund.
Time. So we do have time for you to each give a minute wrap-up statement, and we'll be starting with you, Candidate Larson, and completing with Candidate Kremen.
Thank you.
1 minute.
When we fly on a commercial airline, the flight attendant gives us instructions about safety. They say, in case of an emergency, put the oxygen on yourself before you assist others. Our county government has a $6.4 million shortfall in the current general fund budget. We're getting fewer dollars from the federal government, from the state government in grants. We have less money available. Families and small businesses are struggling, and we are in an emergency. I believe we need to reset our priorities. I believe we need to cut out wasteful spending, which is something I've been doing over the last 10 months, and I've been relentlessly looking for wasteful spending and getting rid of it. I believe we need to encourage and support our job creators so we can get Whatcom working again. You entrusted me to do that 10 months ago when you elected me. I would appreciate your support so I can continue that important work. I'd appreciate your vote. I'm Tony Larson.
My opponent is faulty when he says that we have a $6.4 million shortfall, because we don't. In fact, he added whatever shortfall we have by $1.1 million because of his vote. I'm proud to say that I'm supported by every single police chief in Whatcom County, with the exception of Bellingham. I'm also endorsed by every mayor in Whatcom County, with the exception of Bellingham and Linden. And I'm also supported by every single elected Chamber of Commerce leader in Whatcom County, including the executive director of the Linden Chamber of Commerce. That demonstrates my ability to both work with labor and with business. And I'm very proud of the fact that I have these endorsements. I want to serve you on the Whatcom County Council. I consider Whatcom County my family, and I have a strong, heartfelt desire to represent you for the next 4 years on the County Council. My name is Pete Kremen, and I thank you.
So please join me in thanking the candidates. And Jane from the League for helping organize this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We've had two very good moderators tonight, and I hope you'll all join me in giving them a hand. We'd also like to thank the City of Bellingham for televising these forums, and a special thanks to the crew who was here at night doing this, and a special thanks to Janice Keller for her help with all the coordination. Lastly, a democracy is only as great as its citizens. These candidates have stepped up to run for public office, and now it is your turn. Vote and mail your ballot by November the 8th. These are challenging times, and this is an important election. Thank you so much for coming and making the effort to be an informed voter.